Good afternoon and welcome to my channel. Today I want to tell you about this book, Lima the Horrible by Sebastián Salazar Bondy. Published in Mexico in 1964, the title of the book, so many times misunderstood, was borrowed from Peruvian poet Cesar Moro. This edition is from 1974 and has 160 pages. Perhaps one of the most controversial books concerning our city written in the 20th century, its author, poet, critic, writer, journalist, and playwright Sebastián Salazar Bondy attempts to debunk the myth of the colonial Arcadia, that world of fantasy spread by the grand families, the descendants of the colonial aristocracy, which stated that harmony ruled during the viceroyalty of Peru, conveniently omitting exploitation, abuse, lack of equal opportunities for everybody. Not falling in that lie is, this Marxist writer admits, a difficult mission. It is divided in 11 chapters. The first one is called The Lost Nostalgia. There was no unidyllic character in colonial Lima as tendenciously it has been suggested. The intention is for the grand families to keep their privileged condition. It's not an honest love for history indeed. Colonialism and parochialism, it means worshipping that false image. In reality, that is a city of chaos. The second chapter is called Criollismo as Falsification. Criollismo, from criollo, it means Creole, what's national, regional, concerning culture, from dance to religion, from food to values. It's an accomplice of the oppression while longing for the colonial times. He states the negative aspect of the Creole character, using that cleverness for dishonest purposes. Promoting the vision of the colonial Arcadia is what makes Lima horrible. It's a matter of ethics rather than aesthetics. The third chapter is called The Padlock of the Grand Families. How clever they have been, even letting their daughters marry sons of Campbell Europeans who came to work manually. They have spread the myth and have made the lower classes believe it and even feel nostalgia for that. A period which, as well as during the time this book was written, they were discriminated, rich, ignoring Lima and Peru, afraid of ideas like revolution, agrarian reform, or syndicalism. Chapter 4. Is chance our deity? We are mild, never intense, conservative. Rather than revolution, the general aim is to be as near as possible to the grand families. The individual is more important than the community. Devout and voluptuous city. We are religious for obligation, not for conviction. This is chapter 5. 6. From the Tapada to Miss Peru. The tapada was that woman from colonial Lima who wear a saya or overskirt and manto or a veil. Women have always been prepared to get married, their education poor. They have been educated in a way that are not only victims of conservatism, but they themselves promote it. 7 is the desert lives in the city. From the air, Lima looks so poor, so gloomy. Our rooftops, so Liminian, are ugly. Our pretentious architecture uses the poorest materials. The balconies are rare but not beautiful. Our monuments covered by mold, but we are obliged to glorify all of this. Number 8 is satire and caste instinct. This is an attack on Ricardo Palma as a symbol of conservatism, that exasperating tendency to be indirect and never say what we think. If a poor wants to change his situation, there is revolution or there is infiltration among the rich. The second option is chosen even though he will always be considered tacky. Number 9 is the pantheon of lies, the hypocrisy of the cult of the dead. Rather than the salvation of souls, what we want is to get to hidden treasures. Chapter 10, the country inhibited in painting. He ignores that in pre-Hispanic Peru there was a tradition of painting on walls or frescoes. He criticizes that in colonial painting, any reference to native features was omitted as a tool to Christianize, let's say manipulate the Indians. Pancho Fierro's works, the famous Liminian painter, were also an instrument to spread the myth. And the last chapter, another dissenting vote, on the previous voices deconstructing that misrepresentation of colonial Peru, like Manuel González Prada, a radical and anarchist, or the poet José María Eguren. However, speaking aloud against the myth has not been easy, and the ones who spread it have been more successful, like Ricardo Palma and José Santos Chocano. So after 56 years of this book being written, there are many features that painfully remain as if it had been published yesterday. However, I am optimistic since there is more awareness nowadays of certain aspects as equal rights, fighting against discrimination. Even though I admit our architecture lacks the mestizo character of the houses of Huamanga, the solidity of the ones in Arequipa, the majesty of the ones in Cusco, it is unique, and stating it was worthless is disrespectful to say the least. One day before the anniversary of its Spanish foundation, I invite you to read this book with a critical mind and reflect on the ways to make this a better place to live. That's all.